The Weekly Show with David J. Maloney. This week, David chats with actor and impressionist Jim Meskimen. And now, here's your host, David J. Maloney.
Welcome, everyone, to The Weekly Show. I'm your host, David J. Maloney. On tonight's show, we've got part 2 of my interview with actor Jim Meskimen. He's a master of impressions and has been in some of your favorite comedy series over the past 20 years. You also might have enjoyed some of his more recent dramatic work on shows like Frost Nixon, Gaslit, and Hunters. He can now be found playing the role of Carrie Hubbard on Apple TV's The Big Door Prize. We've got the great Jim Meskimen on after the break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. From there, you've gone on to have quite an accomplished career working in film and TV and some of the most popular comedies of the past 20 years, and including several episodes on Parks and Rec. What comes to mind? Do you have a favorite memory from working on that show? That's obviously a fan favorite for a lot of people.
I love Parks and Rec. It's a fun show, really well written. It was one of these shows that the network didn't really mess with too much. You know, there was not a lot of committee activity, at least that I could see. And so the scripts are just silly and insouciant and fun and original. And anyway, the thing that I take away from that experience, because I did about 1 episode a season, I think. So 7 episodes, something like that. And I wish I'd done more, but I didn't. I think if I'd known what a great show it was a little earlier, I probably would have campaigned and lobbied to be on it more, because it really would have been worthwhile. But the thing I took away from it was I was generally playing, always the same guy, Martin Housley, who was generally emceeing some kind of an event. And so when you have a part like that, they often need a lot of extra stuff that you say to run under the other performers as they're, being talked to in other scenes, because they're at the event. And so we hear this drone of other things going on. And so they would let me improvise long speeches at an award show or something like that. And of course, I really feel very comfortable improvising. So I would go on and just say all kinds of silly stuff that very little of it made the air. But you felt like, I'm improvising for a TV show. This is exactly what I want to be doing.
Was Chris Pratt still in the cast when you were filming?
Yes, he was. He was.
Because I was just kind of curious if he is as hilarious and unhinged on set as the blooper reels of the show make him out to be.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah, very funny guy. He latched onto this sort of character of clueless, big puppy kind of character and he performs it so well. Not easy to do. And when I first met him, he was kind of heavy set and, sort of shy, but very funny and friendly and great on that show.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I was thinking you might be one of the better people to ask, considering your pedigree and all the different comedies you've been in and voiceover work you've done. What do you consider to be some of the best comedies of the past 10 years? I mean, do you have a favorite? I mean, you've been on so many within that time frame.
Yeah, thanks. My sister was full disclosure, my sister was one of the writer producers of Friends. Friends is a kind of a bulletproof comedy. I mean, we watched all of them. They're fantastic. I was on an episode, but I really wasn't a fan of the show. I just knew it was a big show, but I didn't know all the ins and outs of Monica and Chandler and everybody. Later on, I watched it all and I was like, oh, this is an amazing show. So I have to say Friends is really one of the top. Freaks and Geeks, great show. Not a lot of people watched it. Wonderful, wonderful, heartfelt comedy. And one that we watched, there are a lot of great shows. But another one is from the UK that stars my recent friend, Chris O'Dowd. There's a show called the IT Crowd, which is wonderfully funny and silly and wild. And I like that a lot. I mean, laugh out loud funny. So that's one I recommend highly.
Before we move on to the exciting work you're doing right now, I wanted to ask you about your role on How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Was that where he just simply called you up and said, hey, I want you to play this part?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I was offered the role, and what a fun experience. I worked on it for 4 months, which is a really long time for a movie, but it was so, special effects heavy. There were all these makeup tests, and it was a really unique experience because it was just prior to a lot of the better CG stuff being developed. So most of it's practical as far as the costumes and the faces and stuff like that. So, we spent 3 hours in makeup every day, minimum. And everywhere you looked, there was some magnificent artisan's work, from the costumes. Everybody's costume was just gone over. This is a big budget movie, so they were paying a lot of people to do really great work. Money was not a question. The set designs were the production was just incredible. And just fun. Great actors as well. Jim Carrey did a fantastic job, even through quite a bit of discomfort. And actors who I've seen gone on to great other shows. So it was a wonderful experience, and it was super fun. And Ron was, I think, having a ball.
And Jim Carrey is another one of those people who can kind of morph into anyone. Did you guys ever get a chance to chat about, impersonations or any things that you guys had in common? I can almost see you guys, impersonating different people with each other, envisioning something like that, but
not at all. Not even for a minute. He was in a lot of discomfort, and he was the star of the movie. He was carrying the movie, and he was carrying it in a big suit made out of yak fur. He had full scleral eye caps. He had 2 sets of teeth, and and then all the prosthetics on top of it. And it was just not pleasant for him. I mean, he famously went through quite a bit of agony going through it. So he was not chatty. And also, with these big stars, you don't want to take up too much of their time. You want to let them do their work and support them as supporting actors, and not try to buddy up with them too much. And he was not in the buddying zone.
You get in, do your work, get in, get out.
Yeah.
How did your gig with Whose Line is in any way come about?
They came to New York, the British Whose Line. They came to New York to look for improvisers, and they landed at our theater that we had at the time, which was called the National Improv Theater on 8th Avenue. And our group Interplay had been performing for a long time. We've been doing everything, improvised musicals and improvised stand-up comedy and improvised soap operas and just everything, and just going to town with it. And they were impressed. And so they hired me and my pal Christopher Smith to come on their show, which they shot in New York. They shot a few episodes in New York City. They brought English cast over, and we shot with them. And, at the time I was very my nose was really up in the air about the whole thing, because we were doing fancy things with improv, and they were doing, I don't know, it just seemed like silly games and not very challenging. And anyway, we didn't know from this show. This was a little show in England, and nobody knew from it in the United States. So I kind of did it and sloughed it off, and then it has survived to haunt me ever since. Luckily, I think we did some pretty fun stuff in it, and I did they knew I was an impressionist, so they had me do Captain Kirk, I think, at one point, and different characters. So it was fun.
Moving forward a bit, you've gotten to do some really cool work on shows like Gaslit and Hunter. What interested you about moving into these more dramatic offerings?
Well, I've been doing a lot of comedy, but dramatic work tends to be a little more nuanced. It's different kind of characters. And I don't know, since I grew up in this theatrical household where my mother did both, she would do Happy Days, and then she would go off and do Long Day's Journey into Night, very heavy dramas. And so I appreciate that the human instrument can be used to play all kinds of music. And so I am interested in dramas, particularly well-written dramas. I've done also kind of police procedurals, and, those are not as interesting to me. I mean, they're a little bit formulaic and maybe not as brilliantly written or capturing of the human spirit or whatever. But I don't know. I like to do all kinds of work and stretch and see if I can tackle this or that. So when a show like Hunters comes along, where I play a German judge who is at a tribunal, who is sentencing possibly Adolf Hitler to life imprisonment, this is of interest to me. I'm tickled, you might say. And in Gaslit, I played a real senator, Senator Gurney of Florida. And that was some nice scenes, dramatic scenes. And this was a guy who's not a nice guy, who's, at least in the movie anyway, or in the show, is doing in Martha Mitchell in a very underhanded way. So I like to capture that too. And I was just delighted that I got chosen to play such a part.
I mean, your role is opposite of that of Julia Roberts in Gaslit, and you've got some really great exchanges with her in the series. What was it like working with Julia?
Well, I was really looking forward to it. I loved working with Sean Penn. That was a lot of fun. And then Julia Roberts.
The makeup of Sean Penn is insane.
Yeah, and that was the same makeup artist who applied makeup on The Grinch to Jim Carrey. Kazuhiro is his name, and he designed also Gary Oldman's terrific makeup for the Winston Churchill movie Darkest Hour. So yeah, when I met Sean Penn, I did not recognize him because he wouldn't. So good. But when I worked with Julia, she's a big star. Again, I don't want to waste her time. I just want to do a good job. And but the funny thing was, we were so far away on that set. They recreated the Senate chamber where we were doing the scene, and she was a good 20 feet away. And even though she's got a little microphone, kind of like this one, she's got a microphone, and the conceit is that it's being amplified through the place, but really wasn't. They were recording her separately. The microphone didn't actually function. So I was like, I would say my lines, and then I would peer to see if was she done talking? I can't quite hear her. So it was like almost having a conversation with Julia Roberts. And that's happened to me a couple of times where you go, wow, I see. The reality of this is they don't need this kind of microphone and this kind of sound. They need the wonderful, clean movie sound, and they don't give a damn if I can hear or not. So it was tricky, but she was very gracious.
Well, I mean, we had Eric, her brother Eric, on the show a couple weeks ago, and I mean, geez, one of the sweetest, nicest people. I mean, it just comes from good parenting. You just know. I mean, it's just there's no way it doesn't. So on Hunters, you were saying, you play the judge presiding over the trial of Adolf Hitler. I mean, it doesn't get any more dramatic than that.
Pretty dramatic.
I mean, and what a concept. What was it like diving into that role?
It's fun, super fun. And they found this amazing location up in Simi Valley that is like this. It's actually, I think it's owned by some synagogue. It's a big Jewish center, and this huge round concrete building that looked amazing. And like, yeah, this would be the kind of place you'd want to have a tribunal, something like this. This is just dramatic looking. And the weird thing that happened with that one is I auditioned and I got the part, and I was like, wow, this is so exciting. And then they said I was going to work on a Monday. And so on the weekend, I thought, well, good, I'm going to rehearse the heck out of this thing. And, I'm really going to get it down. But my wife and I will go to San Diego, where we sometimes go. My mother has a house down there, and we'll relax. I'll rehearse. And then on the Friday, as we're just about to leave, they said, we made a terrible mistake. We need you right now. And I went, really? And where are you? And they said, in Simi Valley. It's like 40 minutes away. I'm like, oh my God, I got to drop everything. Yeah, we need you as fast as you can get here. And there's a thing called the actor's nightmare. And that's where, and I've had it all my life, and a lot of actors get it, where you suddenly find yourself on stage and with an audience, and you're not quite sure what the play is. And you know that you'd rehearsed it, but it's like, has anybody got a copy of the script now? Well, this was like the real life actor's nightmare, because I drove like a bullet out to Simi Valley. They hustled me into makeup and wardrobe. They hustled me onto the set, and they said, we don't have time to rehearse. But it's scene 32. And I like, scene 32, Jesus Christ. And I've got these script pages. Luckily, I'm on the dais with all the judges, and I can lay out some little papers, because I was like holding on for dear life, like, what's going on? And they were rolling the camera, and I had no idea what we were doing. And after that point, everything was fine. But and even that take was probably pretty good, because I could say, objection, overruled.
Well, but your improv background, I'm sure, had to help somewhat.
A little.
A lot. So you're currently working on Apple Plus's The Big Door Prize, which is being produced by some of the same people who made Schitt's Creek, one of my absolute favorite shows.
Yeah.
Probably one of the best comedies of the past 5 years. How did your casting for that show come about?
Again, fortunate. We do all our auditions from home these days, most of us actors, and so I turned in a tape, and they called me back, and they liked my Irish accent a lot, and so I got to play Chris O'Dowd's dad, and it was a great honor and a wonderful treat, actually.
What's it like working opposite him? He's another guy who I feel like has an incredible comedic timing and kind of body language.
Well, I have spent time with Chris, and I love him. He's great. He's very funny. He's a good actor. He's a good comic actor, but he's a good actor. He can do all kinds of colors, and he doesn't come from stand-up. He comes from theater and goes off and does plays. And I have a lot of respect for him. I think he's terrific. He's screamingly funny when he wants to be. He just has this kind of warm, just irresistible kind of personality, and they're making full use of it with this show, with the Big Door Prize, where he plays this teacher who in the small town, who, his destiny is really, he gets this destiny card from the Morpho machine that tells him that he's a whistler. And what does that mean? And he's trying to figure that out, and everybody's changing around him, and he's trying to find his bearings. And it's very fun. We just finished shooting season 2. Even though season 1 just started airing and is, I think, almost all released now. Maybe one more episode comes out next week. So hopefully we'll have season 3, 4, 5. But it's a fun, very original show. And I don't know, probably some people, it's not their cup of tea, but I think it's really pretty charming.
You've employed, now, not just in this interview, but on these shows, a different accent in each of the shows we've just discussed. Irish in the Big Door Prize, German in Hunters, and kind of a different kind of American dialect, definitely from your own, in Gaslit. Right. Which one is the hardest to do, and what is required in order to get it right?
Well, obviously, I specialize in ones that I feel comfortable with. Yeah. The Gaslit one, this character was Edward Garney, and there was not a lot of video to study of Edward Garney. But I knew that he was from... had spent some time in upstate New York and also was down in Florida. And these little samples that I heard of his voice reminded me very much of the actor Joseph Cotton. And so I thought, well, maybe he's sort of skewing Joseph Cotton. I'm going to try to do Joseph. And that was my in for him because I just didn't have enough research material. And I think it sounds pretty convincing.
No, it definitely sounds authentic. Now, this actually kind of seems like a good leadoff to plug your fantastic new course, How to Become a Working Actor. Tell us a little bit about what made you decide to put that course together.
Well, I got approached by a company that does these things, online courses, and I've been a working actor, for better or for worse, for 35 plus years, and I know what I've done to get there. I've actually kept notes, and there's certain things that I apply over and over again to keep working. It's easy to get a job or get a part in something. It's more difficult to sustain it over the long haul. And there are various challenges that happen like that. So I created these courses, which is a series of videos and ebooks that contain pretty much all the successful actions that I have employed in my career to be a working actor. I don't know how to tell you how to be a star. If I did, I would do that, and then I'd write about it, I guess. But if I had time, but I do know how to be a working actor and keep working and keep your business going and prospering, and so that you can raise a family and get out of some of the job that you don't like. So it's at jimworkingactor.com. You can find out all about it at the moment, People have been telling me that they appreciate it, that it has good information, that they can assimilate easily. It's also pretty entertaining. I think I make it pretty accessible.
I know I saw you recently as Dr. Nicholson on Young Sheldon. What else should we be on the lookout for with you in it in the upcoming future?
Well, if you haven't seen Welcome to Chippendales, I appear as Phil Donahue in Chippendales, which was, that was a whole nother kind of voice and character. And I don't know, just the hair piece and the whole deal. And also, I just got back from Chicago, where I did an episode of Chicago Fire, just a little scene in that. Nice of them to have me, and I enjoyed it very much. Could go to Chicago for the day. And then season 2 of the Big Door Prize, which will follow at some point, season 1.
Jim, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, it's been a great pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, the always entertaining Jim Meskimen.
Thanks so much.
That's our show for tonight. Thank you so much for watching, and a special thanks to actor Jim Meskimen for joining us once again. Stay safe, everyone.